Hello.
Yup, right. I think we are right now live on Hindu Youth Network Facebook page as well, Instagram. Very good afternoon to everybody, and I'm Karthik, and I'm representing the Hindu Youth Network under the auspices of Hindu and Endowment Board. We have actually formed this network to kind of breach the knowledge gap between the Hindu young community or the young Hindu community, if I mean. And we're going to share a lot of information in this new Hindu Insider series. I'm sure you have been already following us, and you'll probably be, having sights of our different shlokas, the explanations behind the shlokas, and certain practices. Why do we do what we do? So all this information we have been giving you in small capsules. And this Hindu Insider series it aims to bring this to a different level. We're going to interact with professionals. We are also going to interact with a lot of enthusiasts who actually do research on their own, and they're going to share with us information on Hinduism, different aspects of Hinduism. And today we're going to begin with a very interesting topic: astrology, right? Especially during this situation, and you have a lot of astrological speculations going on different websites and stuff like that. I've always wondered what's the relevance and validity of astrology, and in particular, Vedic astrology. So I'm going to ask a few questions, and of course, to answer my questions, we have a young Singaporean Vedic astrologer, Mr. Dinesh Cheram, who is online with us. Hi, Dinesh. How are you?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Karthik, for this opportunity. Because I always wanted to actually create an awareness for Indian astrology in Singapore, especially. So thank you for giving me this opportunity.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I'm going to ask you a lot of inquisitive questions, and it could be even tough. So, good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So let's begin. What is Vedic astrology all about?
Okay, so astrology has been part of our Hindu culture and our Hindu religion for a very long time. So we have the Vedas. So we all know these Vedas. So they actually compile these Vedas, and there's six limbs to the Vedas. So one of the limbs is actually Jyotish, Indian astrology. So it's the same thing. It's a Vedic astrology and everything. So the person that we need to give credits to for compiling Indian astrology, okay, is this sage known as Parasharar Munivar. Okay, he's a sage. So he's the one who actually wrote like a compendium on Indian astrology, and so he's everything about astrology. And after that, we had some sages such as Manteshwara, Sage Brigu, and all these people. Yeah. So this is the history of Indian astrology.
Okay, so in today's so yes, you have already shared with us what is Vedic astrology, and you've also shared with us the source of the origin. But how relevant is Vedic astrology in today's context? I mean, you have modern science. In modern sciences, there are more than 9 planets. But the astrology and the reports that we read, it seems to suggest that there are only like more than there are only 9 planets. So please correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, do we have 9 planets according to Vedic astrology, or actually they are not planets, or what? How do we make sense of this system?
Okay, I think your question is more on nine planets. So you're actually referring to why certain planets were actually removed from our system. Maybe Uranus, Neptune. We don't consider
Correct.
them in we don't consider
Yeah.
them in Indian astrology. So for this, actually our sages they only gave up to Saturn. So in the solar system, the orbit, the sages actually spoke about up to Saturn only. And to me, it's enough to actually know what's our karma based on up to the number of planets of us. I mean, up to Saturn. And there's also a confusion where people actually, make a mockery out of Indian astrology. They say that, or how do we consider the sun and moon as planets? Okay, but actually the truth is we never actually considered it as planets. We call it grahas. So the sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, we call these as grahas. What is grahas? Grahas are actually celestial bodies that influences human lives. Okay, so that's our definition to it. But later on, there was a confusion when people started to use English terms. So the people thought that we are referring to the sun and moon as planets also, which is actually not. We call it grahas. Grahas means celestial beings that influences human lives. Yep. And we also have
Right.
two additional grahas. Sorry, we also have two additional grahas known as Rahu and Ketu. So they are actually the Saya grahas, shadow grahas, which means they do not have a form. So this is something that we differ from Western astrology, where we have
So
this
what are
grahas.
this each and every graha supposed to signify? I mean, do you mind walking us through the different grahas and their significance?
Okay, so we all know that the moon actually casts its influence on our planet, and that's why we have the tides, right? So why I choose the moon is because the moon is the nearest satellite that we have, the graha that we have, and its influence is very easily seen, very easily felt on Earth. And slowly, if humans studied it, and we understood that this is known as gravitational energy, and that's why we have the tides. So, in the same way, our Indian sages they analyzed these grahas, and they realized that the moon actually influences the mind of individuals. Okay, so
Right.
it's known as karaka. It's called a karaka tatuam, which means what it represents. So the moon actually represents the mind, but how it will influence the mind differs from people to people, because your moon position differs for every individual. The moon sign, moon nakshatra, all differs. So this is the moon. Now, if we talk about the sun actually represents father, soul, heat, politicians. The center, those who take the center stage. Like politicians and all these people. Then I spoke about moon. Then Mars represents courage, younger siblings, energy, strength, and all these things. So army officers, police, all these people have very strong Mars, influencing their karma, their time on Earth. Then we have Venus. Venus actually represents marriage. Okay, they call Venus the Kalastral Karaka, which means a representative of marriage, sexuality. And we talk about Mercury. Mercury is speech, intelligence, and Rahu is more of a Maya. Rahu means Maya. Ketu is more of the restrictive graha, abortive graha, more spiritual. Then we have Jupiter. Jupiter is knowledge, teacher, wisdom. This is represented by Jupiter. Expansion is represented by Jupiter because one of the biggest graha. And then Saturn is quite controversial because a lot of people fear Saturn. But actually, Saturn is
Hmm.
like a teacher. Saturn is like a teacher, and Saturn is represents grief, all these things in the chart. So this is just the Karaka Tattvam of each planet or each graha. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, let's just focus a little bit on Saturn that you mentioned just now. You said that it represents grief. What does that mean? Does it like you go through a lot of unpleasant experiences? And why does one need to go through these unpleasant experiences?
Okay, Saturn is more like a teacher. Okay, so how it works is we have heard of this Yelranata Sani or the Sade Sati period, okay, or Ashtama Sani, where Saturn uh, moves over the eighth sign from the moon. So, okay, what is this actually? Why Saturn is so feared is because Saturn is the teacher. So, whatever past life negative karmas that people have actually attained, Saturn comes back to teach them on their karmas, their negative karmas. So when Saturn moves over your moon sign, this is known as the period of 7.5 years, where people fear this period. But basically, if you have not done any sins, if you have not accumulated any sins in your past life, then you don't really need to worry too much about these periods. So basically, it's a teacher.
Yeah, so would we classify the scenes as in just generally, as in just paths, as in like those demerit points, right? I mean, that's how we see it, right? Demerit points. And that happens because of a consequence of an action that may have either harmed somebody or have created a very uncomfortable yeah, undesirable circumstance for someone or for others or related to us or even to on for us, right? So and that's how we accrue this papas and punyas, and each birth we take is to actually exhaust all these papas and punyas that we understand. But Earlier you mentioned about the moon and it has the influence on the mind. But how do we validate all this? Like, how relevant are this? I mean, is there like a research being done to say that, hey, yes, if the positioning of this particular grahas, let's not use the word planet since it is very loosely used. So let's use the term grahas to be more specific here. So, and I mean the different position of grahas and therefore it influences and shapes our experiences. Any other like research on this on this stuff to prove it works, it's effective, it's true?
Okay. The first person, so the person who actually compiled this information is Parashara Munivar. So I can actually show you the text. So this is one of the most important texts in astrology. Okay, anybody who studies astrology has to first understand what has been mentioned here, based on Parashara astrology. So there's different versions of astrology, but the main, most popular one is Parashara astrology. So this comes in two volumes, and there is another publication. So this is also another publication, so people can choose to read if they are interested in astrology. So in this book, Parashara has actually given all the rules that governs the questions that you asked. So where is it well posited? When the moon is, maybe for example, if the moon is posited in a certain sign, it means it's negative. All these informations has been given by him. So we use this text as the foundation, and then maybe after that a lot of research has been done, especially in the 20th century, 21st century, because we have internet and all. So people write a lot of articles, really, they publish a lot of books, so you can read them. But of course we should always stick to the classical foundations to have a solid understanding of what each graha represents on your in your chart.
Right. Okay. So now you've explained to us the significance of it. Now let's move on dealing with it. So we know there are many astrologers today, and in the society, in the community, and we sometimes we can even approach on the streets as you walk, saying that, hey, can I offer this astrological service and stuff like that. But and sometimes interestingly, when you have interactions with them, they I mean, we have heard so many distressful stories of how parents listening to some of these astrologers saying that, hey, this couple won't get together, and then that kind of causes a split among the couples could have been in courtship for many years and they could have been very much happy. Then you also have another stream of people who actually end up saying, okay, you know what, let's sort this out. We want the relationship, and they actually spend a fortune on whatever prescriptions that they asked to do on. And then you have another group that also they don't believe in this, and they actually, I mean, the astrological report, the blueprint says, hey, there's a mismatch of jadagam, if I may use the word. But end up they actually evolve and they lead a very successful marriage. So how do we make sense of all these variations?
Okay. On the first question of, okay, for couples who have kids, so now we're talking about marriage. Okay, so if
Yeah,
couples have
generally.
their horoscope checked before their wedding, and then if it says that, okay, there's negativity, these couples should not get along. Actually, by right in astrology, we are not supposed to actually, like, if there are two couples, I mean a couple who comes to us and says that, okay, they're in love and they want to get married, we're not supposed to actually separate them. It's actually a sin. Okay, what we are supposed to recommend them is actually um, remedies. Okay, prayers. What prayers you can do to actually nullify this or zero this negative karma that you have brought to this planet, to Earth in your lifetime. So we're not supposed to actually separate them. We need to give them a lot of remedies, a lot of prayers. And how we actually identify these remedies and prayers is through the planetary positions in their birth charts.
Earlier, you mentioned that according to the karma, the theory concept of karma, right? It says that one can never stay away. You have to actually experience the papas that you actually have. That means you have to basically, reap whatever you have already sowed. But you can always reduce the effect of the consequences of the unpleasant experiences through pratana, through prayer, and that's what you are exactly saying. But apart from investing in time and effort in remedies and ritual processes, I was wondering whether would it make sense to also refine our personalities, our gunas, our qualities to also deal with situations. I mean, is there another type of remedy that we should be adopting?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Okay,
Sorry,
so
sorry.
apart from just investing in remedies and stuff like that, ritual processes, my question to you is, should we also then look inwards and see what are the qualities that we need to refine? Because based on whatever you mentioned just now, the significance of the various grahas, it seems to be a lot more of personality oriented, qualities, gunas oriented. So that means when we are having certain issues or unpleasant experiences, does that imply that it's about qualities and therefore we should actually refine our personalities more than just investing money and time in ritual processes? I'm just asking a very broad question.
Okay. How you can go about it is, so once you have approached an astrologer and once you have gotten your chart read, so maybe it says that you have brought negative karma in terms of marriage. Okay, since we are speaking about marriage. Okay. So what we can do is one set is carrying out the remedies, the prayers. The other set, the other part, the other path that we can take is to understand that okay, so we have made mistakes in past life based on this marriage. So whenever we face challenges in our marriage, we should not immediately react. Okay, we should be calm, composed, and take it as this is part of our karma and accept it. And so when you speak to your spouse, be more calm, more relaxed. So that's the part of the qualities that you can actually pick up. And the next thing is you can do meditations to calm your mind. Actually, meditation is a very powerful remedy itself. It actually cures everything in the chart. So I always advocate meditation to my clients to tell them to do meditation because it calms the mind, and the mind is the cause of most of our problems that we face. So this is one quality that we all should work on. Okay,
That's right.
and yeah.
Makes sense. So apart from that, what other okay? So so far the discussion has been pretty much centered on the relevance of Vedic astrology in the context of marriage. Let's shift a bit more towards business and academic life. How do we make sense of it? I mean, marriage is just one phase of life, correct?
Yeah.
Beyond that, how else can we make sense of Vedic astrology to help enhance our life experiences per se?
Okay, so how we look at it is actually when you visit an astrologer, can you see? So we are given this a set of boxes. Okay, it's actually 12 boxes. So people always wondered what actually this meant. So basically, this is actually the can you see? Okay, so this
Yeah.
is actually the zodiac signs in the sky, and so we have Aries. So we start from Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, up till Pisces. Okay, so and then we have these grahas that actually is placed in these boxes. Okay, so these boxes, these 12 boxes, we will have this something called lagna. It's known as the ascendant. That actually represents the first house in astrology. So the first house. So okay, so these 12 boxes, 12, it's known as 12 houses. They represent different areas or different aspects of our life. So the first house is known as the Dhanusthanam, which means it represents everything to do with our own selves, our strengths, our mind, our brain, all these things. The second house is the house of wealth, family, your speech, and also your education. Okay. So the third house actually represents siblings, younger siblings, brother. Fourth house is the house of comforts. It represents mother, your vehicles, your home, your homeland. Fifth house is actually known as the Purva Punya Sthanam, which represents the creativity, your children, what you bring to this earth, your creativity, your merits. Some people also speak about romantic relationships. Then
Mm.
sixth house is debts, diseases, enemies. So this is the first dusta sthanam. They call it the first. It's a bad house, the sixth house. Then the seventh house is the house of marriage. Okay, your wife, your business partners. So all these effects you can see from the seventh house. The eighth house is the house of longevity. The ninth house is the fortune, father, religion. 10th house, your karma sthanam, your profession, what you're doing on earth. 11th house is your labha, your gains. And the 12th house is the house of loss, also known as foreign lands and many other things. So this is just the basic gist. So we all come to earth, we do not carry the same set of karmas. Some people will be well off in terms of career, some people will be not well off in terms of marriage or childbirth and all these things. So it depends on the positions of the grahas in your natal chart. So what is natal chart? Natal chart means your at the time of birth, it's a snapshot of the sky, the zodiac, and where the grahas are. Like I told you, so we have so many houses, so many things to look at, different aspects. So I think I've answered your question, right? Right.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much, Dinesh, for answering my questions. Now you're going to have even more challenging task. You're going to be answering audience questions. Audience, you may actually post your questions in the comment sections below, and I'll be reading them out loud for Dinesh so that he can answer. And try to ask more thought-provoking questions, more relevant questions to Vedic astrology on particularly maybe the effect it has on our lives and stuff like that. So on that note, we have Tejas who's asked this question, which I think you have partially answered earlier. What is the effect of retrograde in various grahas, the Guru, Sani, Shukra? How do one deal each of the retrograde? Are your fortunes, luck dependent on your chart? How do we work on gaining luck while we also do hard work? I mean, does the question make sense to you? I mean, is it too robust? You
Yeah.
want me to break it down?
Okay. I will answer the first part. He asked about Vakra, correct? I mean retrograde.
Uh, the grahas, yeah, the retrograde or in various
Okay.
grahas. So maybe we can answer that
So
first. How do we
okay. So
deal with it?
so retrograde means Vakra. So basically, some grahas move backwards, but in the actual orbits, the grahas do not move backwards or forwards. I mean, they only move forwards; they don't move backwards. Why we have this backward motion is because of the relative motion, because it's to do with Earth, and then the grahas are placed behind, or in front. So you have to see it with a it's a scientific explanation to it. So it's actually basically relative motion. So sometimes the grahas seem to move in a backward direction. So this phenomenon is known as vakra or retrograde. And what actually a retrograde graha means, there's a lot of meanings to it, but basically it's actually becoming more powerful. It's like if you take a bow and then you stretch the bow, so it's moving backwards. What happens? The arrow becomes more powerful. So that is one of the example that we can give here for a Vakra planet or a planet that goes retrograde. And what exactly it signifies, we need to actually study the chart. We need to look at the chart. Which sign or which positions or which graha is this particular graha moving towards to? Okay, this is more of a very astrological question, but it's a good question. And he was asking about luck, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
How do we actually? I mean, our fortunes and luck dependent on our chart, or how do we work on gaining luck while we also do hard work? That's what she meant. Yeah.
Okay. This question. Okay. So basically, in astrology, right, there is a concept known as a functional benefic, functional malefics. So the benefics are these grahas. So at the time of birth, certain grahas naturally becomes your friends. Okay.
Mm.
So what we need to do is we need to strengthen these grahas. So how we can strengthen? One of the ways is wearing gemstones. So for myself, if you can see, I'm wearing the stone of a Mars. Okay. So coral. This is a coral. So when we strengthen these friends, what happens is we get some kind of energy from these grahas. That's the luck part. But overall, if you look at maybe Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, all these people, they do not need to wear all these gemstones or anything like that.
Mm.
They have a lot of purva punya, which means past life karmas, that they have attained, that in this lifetime it will be very much easy for them to gain wealth, to live a very comfortable life.
Yeah.
So the chart needs to be also analyzed.
So, since you're on that point, and that one question that I found, and I think might be useful to actually explain the concept of karma again for some audience who may have just joined us. So, we have one follower who have asked, her name is Saru. She has asked, why are we paying for whatever karma we done in the last birth? I mean, which we hardly can remember, right? So, how do we then make sense of karma and what it takes to subscribe to karma, concept of karma?
So why we are paying for past life karma?
Can't
Because
even remember.
because see, we are coming to Earth. We need a form. Okay, as a soul, we can't really do much. We can't do nothing. So we need a form, and we take birth on Earth, life after life, wanting to do certain things. Okay, so for example, maybe yourself, you are a DJ. You want to speak about Tamil. You want to what do you call that? Encourage people to speak Tamil. All these things that you are right now, it's not only based on what you are here, what you picked up here. It's all based on your past life karma also. Or maybe a doctor, noble professions, especially they picked up uh, this karma from their past life. They have been very good, good people. They wanted to help people, so they become doctors this lifetime. So I told you we need form. We need a form, and we take many births, and until we get liberated, moksha. Okay, so this is actually our wants. Okay, our soul wants to come back, but there's the universal energies. You can't go escape these universal energies, and you need to face the consequences for whatever you have done. So you
Yes.
assume I kill someone in my past life, or I kill thousands of people. I can't just escape this pain that I've inflicted on other people. Okay, so what we can do in this lifetime is to do good, to be good, um, to help people, donations, charity. So what astrology actually helps us, how astrology helps us is we get to know where we made the mistakes. So that's one use of astrology. We get to know whether we make a fault in our child, with our children related matters, or with our father, with our mother. We get to understand it, and then we work on this karma where we have faulted.
Yeah, I think you put it very succinctly. Every action has a consequence. You cannot escape from the consequences. We have to pay the price, and
Right.
sometimes you get to face the punishment. If I may use that term very loosely, the consequences pretty fast within your current life birth. But sometimes it can spill over, and that's how we then explain why some are less advantaged or more advantaged, or why some are living a more happier life, and why some are having a lot more challenges. All this is determined based on the concept of karma, and to subscribe to that you basically just need one element. I think that's called shraddha, faith in our scriptures. I mean, the scriptures have actually outlined this very clearly. So all it takes is actually to have some form of faith, and it doesn't mean that you cannot lead a prosperous life, or get out of this very discomfortable situation in this life. You can actually do by through whatever that you just shared earlier, the remedies that we adopt, and also by making changes in our lifestyle. If we seem to be having a lot more illness, we are prone to more illness, then change your eating lifestyle. I mean, these are some practical solutions that we can also put in place. I mean, we can also study hard and progress. So there's always, if I'm not wrong, there's this concept called the Sanchita Prapta Sanchita Karma, right?
Correct.
Past, present, and future. So what we can do is the bows that we have already, I mean, arrows that we have already shot is the previous one. We can't do anything. We can't undo the actions. But where we want to shoot our current arrow based on whatever punyas that we have earned, it really depends on us. So we are responsible for our actions. I hope that answers Saro. Okay, let's answer a few other questions. I think a person has asked, Niresh Kumar. Okay, I think it's has jokingly asked, is there any way to change his fate? I don't know. Dinesh?
Okay, it's actually a very good question. Okay, why people study astrology, why people approach astrology, is to actually carry out remedies. Okay, this is actually a very good question. So, for example, you in terms of child-related issues, some people find it very difficult to even have a child, or some people have faced problems with their children this lifetime. So this is something to do with the fifth house matter, the house of children, and they come in, maybe in their past lives they already have sinned in terms, or they have already attained negative karma in that aspect of life. So they come in this lifetime, they face these challenges. So you come with a negative karma account, and what life puts you through is basically to zero this karma. So this negative karma, you will zero it, going through these challenges, difficulties. But the other way that you can actually zero this negative karma is by carrying out remedies, by carrying out prayers. Even if you can't zero or nullify this negative karma, you can at least mitigate the severity by carrying out these prayers, remedies. So how we astrologers, we tell them, for example, Jupiter is the Karaka for children, and assuming he owns the fifth house and is being afflicted. So what we do, we tell them to do the Jupiter remedies, pray to Jupiter. We are more, so astrology is more like directed, more focused to individuals' karma.
Yeah,
So
so
sorry, I'll just try to finish this. So for example, Jupiter, how you can carry out Jupiter remedies is, of course, praying to Jupiter in the temple. It's known as Guru Bhagawan. Okay, and then we can donate yellow items. Do these donations on Thursdays, because Thursday. So every graha has a has a particular day allocated to it. So even without we knowing, we are actually using astrology in our daily lives. So Monday means moon, Tuesday means Sabbai, which means Mars, Wednesday Buddhan, Thursday Guru, Thursday is Guru, which is Jupiter, Friday is actually Delhi, which is actually Shukran, Saturday Sunny, and Sunday is the Sun.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you so much for answering that question. Lee Che has asked, Lee Che Lau has asked, is astrology linked to religion? What if we convert?
If astrology is linked to religion, and what if we?
What if we convert?
Okay, I think of course, Indian astrology is very general. It applies to every other people in this world. Okay, even if you are a Christian, Muslim, you are still influenced by these grahas. That's the truth. So his question is about religion, converts. Basically, this you need to look at the ninth house matters. So I said the ninth house is actually the house of religion, the house of pilgrimages. Everything related to God is seen from the ninth house. And I've seen that people who have Rahu, so Rahu is like an unconventional graha. He means change. He means foreign. So when people have Rahu in the ninth house, usually, not always, usually, they tend to convert. They seek for something different. Yep.
Okay. Next, we have a question from Ganga. If there's only one Vedic astrology, but why do different astrologers tell us different things? Which one should we follow? I think it boils down, this question boils down to the how do we verify who is credible and reliable astrologer? Is there like a assessment criteria that we can use to check, okay, like this person is quite reliable, so we can actually consult him? How do we identify a reliable and credible astrologer?
Okay. Let me first answer a question on if there's only one Vedic astrology, why different astrologers tell us different things. Assuming you go to two professional astrologers, they really have studied this science, they understand this science, and then you get different predictions. The reason is it's like chess. Okay, we get two expert players, okay, in the midst of a game, coming to make the same. It's coming together in the same side, trying to make a move. Both of them know the rules very well. The pawn can move like that, the king can move in this manner, the bishop can move in this manner. They know the rules, but still, will they make the same move? They will not. Why? Because the permutation and combinations are so huge in the game of chess. So in the same way, astrology is the permutation combinations are so huge that it's very difficult for same two astrologers. I mean, different two astrologers who are professional and knowledgeable, but to make the same prediction. I think I've answered that. And but so how do we come to know? After maybe you visit a few so my early days I used to visit many astrologers, so I don't let go of any astrologer in Singapore. Every astrologer that people know, I would have visited them. But after a while I saw a pattern. I saw that, okay, yeah, this first one said the same thing as the third one. It will not be the exact same thing, but uh, very similar. Then you roughly know, okay, yeah, they're coming to the same point.
Yeah. So, I mean, on credibility, I think we should also, on that point, I think we should also share a little bit more of you, about you, Dinesh. I mean, where did you actually study about this Vedic astrology? Who was your teacher? Maybe you can share a little bit on that before we answer more questions.
Okay, so for myself, I stumbled upon astrology in my early 20s. So how it started, because before that I was totally not into all these things. Like, to me, even God's existence was a question mark. And what happened was my parents actually went to visit an astrologer for my eldest brother in terms of his marriage and where he will be. So he gave very accurate predictions in terms of his marriage. And so my eldest brother, he's actually in Qatar. So he moved out of Singapore. And so the astrologer predicted that he will not be in Singapore and a lot of other things about his marriage. So that was very shocking for me. I was like, how can someone be so accurate with their predictions? He has not even seen my brother, but he exactly knew what was happening in his life. And then I picked up a book. Uh, I'm not sure if it's here. Okay, it's on top. So I picked up a book and I started reading on astrology, and I got so hooked to it. And after which I kept on reading a lot of astrology text, and eventually I went to India to get a certification from Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. It is under this. He's a very famous astrologer, very well known, renowned astrologer, Mr. K.N. Rao. So I went to Delhi to in his institution, but it was like a crash course, and he taught astrology. His institution, his lecturers, professors taught me astrology, so I got a better understanding. And even today, till now, I still do online courses. I just keep wanting to know if there's anything more than I can know. And currently I'm learning under this person called Dilip Kumar. He's from Chennai, South Indian. He's also a very good astrologer, and he has been teaching me a lot of the insights in Indian astrology. Yep.
Okay, so let's get back to the Q&A segment again.
Yep.
From the audience. Vignesh Kumar has asked this question in Tamil. I'll translate it. What does this the period that you mentioned just now, the sunny period, right?
Hmm.
What does it really mean? And maybe you may want to reiterate some of the points. And how are there different types? And when will it actually benefit us? I think you've answered some parts of the question, but it might be useful to just do a summary.
Okay, so Yelrai Sunny, what it means is basically okay. For example, now assuming moon is in Makara, if you're born with your moon in Makara, which is Capricorn, okay. So when Saturn transits one sign before Makara, which is actually Sagittarius, your Yelra Sunny starts. Okay, the 7.5 period, the 7.5 years of Sunny's influence starts. So what happens is actually the Saturn is just one sign behind your moon's natal position, the moon in your birth chart. So Saturn remains in a sign for 2.5 years. So Saturn remains in Sagittarius for 2.5 years, and then it transits. So on average, then it transits to Makara. That's another 2.5 years, and then one sign in front, which will be Aquarius. That's another 2.5 years. So total, you have 7.5 years. So when Saturn is one sign behind your moon, natal moon, and then above your natal moon, and then one sign ahead of your natal moon. This is what 7.5 years of Sunny means. And of course, we need to study the chart of the person who's going through this 7.5 years period. For some people, they go through 7.5 years, they say that I didn't really face any challenges. But if you ask someone else, they will say that, oh my God, this was the worst period in my life. So the reason is, again, we need to analyze the horoscope. One important thing that we can look at is it's known as Ashtaka Varga, Sarvashtaka Varga. Yeah, I don't want to go too technical. The points are located to Saturn. There we will be able to kind of maybe relate the challenges, the difficulties that one will go through. So the moon is like a very white, chill planet, and it doesn't like to be associated with Saturn. Because Saturn is more of the grief, darkness. Moon is white. So when Saturn comes close with the moon, you go through this 7.5 years period.
Okay. Wow. I think we really had a very, very useful discussion. I hope I've answered most of the relevant questions. I mean, there are some people who have jokingly asked when will COVID end. I don't think that's an answer that you can give, right?
That's a mundane astrology. Till now, astrologers. So, okay, since someone asked this question, till now, astrologers, most of them, they didn't know. They didn't know about it because when Guru was transiting to its own sign, Sagittarius, people thought it would be all good. But if you go back to when COVID started, you will realize that at that particular point, at that particular period, there was a lot of grahas in the sky that was in that Sagittarius sign with Guru. And so it's not a good thing. Too many grahas coming. You see, if you're on the streets and you see suddenly too many people coming together, you know there's something wrong right there. So in the same way, most of the grahas came together in a Sagittarius sign, and 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 that was like a trigger. Then something else happened. I don't know if people remember. Towards the end of December, there was this eclipse. Eclipse is also a very inauspicious event in astrology. So that was like another trigger. So a lot of things, Danusha Rasi, which is Sagittarius itself, it's actually a warring zone. It's a war zone, because if you see the symbol of Danus, it's actually a bow and arrow. So there is a significance, and then Rahu was in its own nakshatra in the third house. Third house is actually the house of your throat, all these things. So we can make some inferences, but mundane astrology is extremely difficult to also make predictions about. And our
Okay.
our sages didn't really give so much information on mundane astrology.
So, I mean, based on whatever you shared earlier, I think there's another question. Durga Devi GK has raised this question. Is it true that 7.5 sunny period, that means when a particular position of a graha can remain there for an extended period of time? And if people whom are close to you, if you're close to whom you're close to are affected in that period, does it affect you too, even if you're not in that period? Let me try and make sense of this question. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I get the question. Okay,
Yeah.
so the first question of 7.5 year period, can it get extended? So I told you, I gave you an example. On average, Saturn transits in a sign for 2.5 years. So so it becomes 7.5 years. But sometimes Saturn stays in the sign a bit longer. So, for example, people who went through those who are Tula Rashi, okay, Tula Rashi people who went through the 7.5 year period, they would have faced the difficulties. So it already ended for them, but they would have faced it slightly longer because Saturn was transiting the signs slightly longer. So for them, was not just 7.5, was slightly longer than 10. And if you are close, so her next question, if people are close to you and affected in that period, so I think this is more like a actually karma, right? How it works is we actually share karma if we are part of the same family. From my own experience, if your mom, your dad, we all come together because of a reason. So people think that we met our parents in this lifetime. There was no reason. It just happened like that. No, it's not like that. We met our parents, our spouse, everything. There is a reason. Okay, why we met them. And so especially for spouse, for married couples, they definitely share karma. That's why when you get married to a person, for one person, maybe the seventh house, the house of marriage, is afflicted, but for someone else, the house of marriage will be very well placed, like exalted. That's another term in astrology. Such things happen, then this married life will be very good. Their married life will be very good because though one has a negative portion to it, the other one has it actually like kinds of fills up the gap. I hope I've
Okay.
answered the question.
Just a personal note. Please keep your comments, general, your questions, specific on the topic, target on a topic. Let's not mention anything personal here. I hope everyone who's watching would be able to cooperate. Let's keep the focus on the topic, which is the relevance of astrology. Okay, I think there's another question that has just popped out. Kanaga Durga Devi has asked, which Rasi Natchatiram will benefit this in 2020 and 2021? Basically, I think what's Rasi and what's Natchatiram, I think it might be useful to differentiate these two stuff. I mean, we hear these terms quite often. What does
Okay,
it actually really mean?
so um, so this is the chart, like I showed you. So this is the Rasi. So Aries means Mesha Rasi, Taurus means Rishabham, Gemini Midunam, Kadagam, Simbam, Kanni, Tulam. I'm saying it in Tamil, so I think a lot of people are actually Tamil viewers. And then each sign will have three nakshatras. Okay, usually will have three nakshatras, and sometimes they overlap. So it starts from Ashwini, Bharani, Kartigai, Rohini, Mrigashiridam, Tiruvathirai, Punarpusam, Pusam, Ayulyam. That's one set. Then we have the other nakshatras, which is Maga, Puram, Uttiram, Astam, Chitrai, Swadi, Visagam, Anusham, Kettai. And then it ends here, and then it starts off again, which is Moolam, Puradam, Uttiradam, Tiruvonam, Avitam, Sadayam, Puratadi, Uttiratadi. So we have 27 nakshatras. So basically how it works is one sign, it's divided into three nakshatras. Okay, but it's definitely not equal. The nakshatras will not be divided equally. Okay, but I can go very deep, but this is, I
Yeah.
think,
So now to answer the Durga Devi's question, which stars are in an advantageous position? I don't know if
okay.
that's like it's answerable. Yes, please do.
Okay, so this is, I think her question is more related to transits. Transits means Guru Peyarchi, Sani Peyarchi. Um, Again, we need to analyze this. So, Guru Peyarchi, Sani Peyarchi, transits are like analysis that's done from a person's moon sign, okay, the birth moon. So, whenever Jupiter transits the second house, the fifth house, seventh sign, ninth, and 11th, it tends to do good. So, for example, I think Jupiter has already it's already in Capricorn, if I'm not wrong, for right now. Yeah, I don't know whether, because there's this Bakra concept I told you, the Grahas move forwards and backwards. So for example, when last year around October, November, when Jupiter transited to Sagittarius sign, those people who are Simha Rasi, they benefited a lot because Jupiter transited to the fifth sign from their moon sign. Okay, and Saturn was transiting to their sixth sign. So Saturn, whenever it transits 3, 6, and 11, it tends to do the good things. It's only three signs for Saturn. So
But
you need to look in overall. You need to look at the picture in overall. You cannot take this as a concrete thing that I'm going to have a good time, because there's another concept known as dashas and bhuktis in astrology. So that you have to give the most important. It's the most important.
so modern science tells us that the grahas or rather the planets actually use. I mean, they actually uh, move at a very 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 slow speed and stuff like that, right? It takes in fact years for the different planets to move from one position to another position.
Hmm.
That's what I understand. But then the way you shared earlier, I had a sensing that the planets actually move much faster from year to year. It, again, how do I make sense of this? Is the speed of the solar system planets relevant to the Grahas movement?
Yeah. They correlate. They're the same thing. We're actually referring to the same thing. Oh, I think you got maybe mixed up because I said that, for example, Saturn takes 2.5 years. Saturn takes 2.5 years in one sign. Okay, so to go around the entire the orbit, it takes 30 years. So if you take 2.5, you times by 12, you get around 30 years. So it takes a very long time. They are the slower moving grahas. Then Jupiter takes 12 years, for example. So these two grahas are even the most important. And then for Rahu Ketu, they also have their movement. They move in the opposite direction. So they take about 1.5 years, 18 months. And takes about 28 days. She takes 28 days. And Sun, I think, yeah. So I think I've answered your question
Yes, you
on
did.
on
You
on.
did.
on
It in fact sounds very much logical right now,
mm,
I'm totally convinced. Now we have another question from Vanita Kumar.
mm.
How are people born in a different year, day, and date have the same rasi and nakshatiram?
Okay, so what is Rasi Natchatram? Rasi Natchatram is actually your moon sign. So where your moon was. And exactly on the background, what nakshatra is the background. So for example, if the moon is so for a person, because I told you, right? So the moon takes 28 days on average to move the entire zodiac sign from all the way from Aries, Rishabha, all the way till Meena Rasi. So that's why people who are born different year, different periods, they sometimes have the same nakshatras. So the moon comes back to the same natal position at the time of your birth.
All right.
Mm.
Thank you so much for that. I think a lot of people are thanking you for patiently answering their questions. really, I think whatever you have shared today, it's very useful. I think it would have definitely at least broadened our perspectives on Vedic astrology and also dispel some of the misconceptions that we had prior to this session. So thank you so much, Dinesh, for accepting our invitation and setting aside almost close to an hour. I know we only discussed for a half an hour session, but I think we
No
had
problem.
really support for the first show. So I'm so glad as well. Thank you so much for answering all our questions so far. I have just one last question, and that could be the conclusion. Okay, the question would be now. You have shared with us the key concepts, the movements, and stuff like that. But beyond all this astrology, Vedic astrology, which is just based on a group of sages findings, if I may say that. Uh, do these astrological measurements or calculations and all evolve over time, or they will be forever relevant in the years to come as well?
Okay. So you see, so for example, in the classical text, right, they would have said that if you are well off, you will have a lot of cows, you will have a lot of buffaloes, and all these things. So this was 2000 years ago. But in today's context, nobody wants to have them. If I'm going to give you 10 buffaloes, 10 cows, you'll be like, you know. So you have to look at it in that context. So what it means is this person will be blessed with wealth. Because in the past, wealth was not in terms of money; it was in terms of grains, in terms of gold that you have, or in terms of the number of cows and buffaloes that you have. So this is the context. So this context might change. So for example, computer, it just came, in the last 100 years. Before that, we didn't even know what computer was. But can we still say that someone will be in the field of computer engineering? Yes, we can say. So how we can look at it? Definitely Buddhan, Mercury influencing the karma, the profession. Then definitely this person might be related to computer engineering, something like that. Because why Mercury is actually communication, the graha that represents communication, the graha that represents mathematics, calculations, ganita. So we need to look at it in terms of the context.
I think it's so interesting. You just mentioned about mathematics and stuff like that. There's another question. Let's just answer this. Some say that Lagnam is more important than Rasi. Is that true? What to look at to get a good reading?
Yeah, definitely Lagna is extremely important, more than the moon sign. So the reason why we gave a lot of importance to the moon sign compared to the Lagna in the past is because, like I told you, in those days, people didn't have the clock. So Lagna is very related to the exact time of birth. Okay. So people didn't have a clock. So they only roughly knew where their moon was in the sky. So they made predictions. A lot of predictions was made based on the moon. And so if people had clock, if they had watches, then a lot of predictions would have been based on the Lagna. So Lagna is like the starting point. That is the most important starting point, which will actually define everything in astrology. So if someone comes with a chart without a Lagna, you cannot read the chart. You cannot totally, you will not be able to read the chart.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dinesh. Any final concluding words that you would like to share with those who have followed us thus far? I think we will stop taking questions, but we'll give Dinesh a chance to wrap up.
Okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I don't know how I thank God for coming across these signs. And my goal here in Singapore right now is to actually, kind of encourage people to pick up, to understand these signs. It's not just like, people make mockery out of astrologers and all these things. But okay, whoever they make fun, but the science, it's true. And it's part of our religion, part of our Vedas. So we still need to, understand it. And this science shouldn't just disappear, because a lot of effort has been put into this science by our sages, and we need to carry it. It's like our pride. So I hope people can keep this up. And thank you very much for this platform. I really like to thank you guys, because without you, this is not possible.
No, I think it's our pleasure. When we first started off, we didn't know whether we would get a good response, and actually, we are very heartened to see that so many people are asking so many thought-provoking questions. I think there are a few more questions to come, but unfortunately, we are running out of time. We hope to keep this to 1 hour. I think general tip would be that if anybody has questions, Dinesh, would you be open to answering them privately? I mean, they can always private
Yeah,
message you on
sure,
Facebook, right?
sure,
So
sure.
for those who have just submitted their questions and earlier those who have asked, feel free to just get in touch with Dinesh Cheram on his Facebook, and I'm sure he'll be able to answer your questions in detail.
Yes.
All right, Dinesh, with that, we'll conclude this
Yeah.
afternoon's conversation. Thank you so much and have
Thank
a
you.
very good
Thank you. Thank you.
weekend.
Thank you.